Imagine a conversation. It isn't spoken aloud, but typed, letter by letter, across a secure, anonymous connection, traversing the globe in milliseconds. On one side of the screen is a person. They could be your neighbor, your colleague, the quiet person you see at the grocery store. They are, in most respects, ordinary. Except for the fact that they have a problem. A problem so overwhelming, so consuming, that they believe it cannot be solved through conventional, or even legal, means. On the other side of the screen, in a location that is both everywhere and nowhere, is an administrator. A calm, professional presence in the digital void. The client, their hands possibly shaking, types a message that will alter the course of their life forever: "I need someone taken care of." No traces. No questions. A short pause, a simulated moment of consideration, then the reply appears, chilling in its simplicity. "We are professionals. This is what we do. Provide the details. Payment is in Bitcoin. We will handle the rest." This is not a scene from a Hollywood movie. This is not a passage from a spy novel. This is a transcript, a digital artifact from a website hidden in the depths of the internet, a sprawling, hidden metropolis known colloquially as the dark web. It's a place where, as the legends and news reports tell us, you can procure anything your heart desires, or your darkest thoughts can conjure. And that includes, it would seem, the termination of a human life. Thousands of people, from all walks of life, from all corners of the globe, navigate to sites like this every single year. They are not hardened criminals. They are, for the most part, amateurs in the world of crime. They are searching for a solution, a final, permanent solution to a problem that haunts their waking moments and poisons their dreams. A jealous ex-lover who has moved on, flaunting a new happiness that feels like a personal insult. A business partner who threatens to expose a secret that would shatter a carefully constructed career. A family member whose existence complicates an inheritance. The reasons are as varied as human suffering itself, and as grim as our capacity for cruelty. These individuals put their faith in technology. They believe that the anonymity of cryptocurrency and the encrypted channels of the dark web form an impenetrable shield. They believe they are operating in a digital Wild West, a world without rules, without consequences. So they browse the services offered, a grotesque parody of an e-commerce experience. They select an option, add it to their virtual cart, and proceed to checkout, as if they were ordering a new pair of shoes. They follow the instructions with meticulous care, transferring a small fortune in a volatile digital currency to a long, indecipherable string of letters and numbers. And in that moment, they feel a surge of something they haven't felt in a long time: control. A sense of power over a situation that had rendered them powerless. But they are missing the most critical piece of information in this entire transaction. They have no idea who they are actually talking to. In their mind's eye, they picture a shadowy figure from the criminal underworld, a professional assassin with ice in his veins, a ghost who will execute their will and vanish without a trace. They believe they are hiring the Albanian mafia, the Russian mob, some legendary organization that lives outside the law. In reality, they have just sent every incriminating detail of their murderous plot, their victim's name, their home address, their daily routine, and a direct digital trail leading back to themselves, straight into the hands of a government agent sitting in a secure office building. These are the stories of ordinary people who were convinced they could order a murder online with the click of a button. And this is the story of the most ingenious, and perhaps the most effective, honeypot in the history of the internet. A place where the only service you are guaranteed to receive is a life sentence. A world where the customer is always, fatally, wrong, and the final payment is made not with Bitcoin, but with decades of your own freedom. We are about to enter the world of the Hitman for Hire website, and we will find that the only thing being executed is a carefully planned and perfectly legal sting operation. Before we can truly comprehend why a seemingly rational person would fall for such an obvious trap, we must first dissect the powerful myth that makes it so alluring. It is the myth of the digital delete button for real-world problems. A myth born from the potent marriage of two of the most powerful forces in modern life, our technology and our culture. First, let's demystify the technology. The term dark web conjures images of a lawless, digital hellscape, but the reality is more nuanced. Think of the entire internet as an immense ocean. The part you and I interact with every day, Google, YouTube, social media, online shopping, is the surface. It's sunlit, easily navigable, and everything is indexed and cataloged by search engines. It's vast, but it's only a tiny fraction of the ocean's true depth. Below this shimmering surface lies the deep web. This isn't a sinister place, it's simply all the content that isn't indexed by search engines. Your private email inbox, your online banking portal, academic databases, corporate intranets, all of this is the deep web. It's hidden behind a login or a paywall, but it's part of the normal functioning of the internet. But if you dive deeper still, into the crushing, lightless abyss, you find the dark web. This is a small, specialized corner of the internet that requires specific software to access, most commonly the Tor browser. Tor, which is an acronym for the Onion Router, is a masterpiece of privacy engineering. It works by taking your internet traffic and bouncing it through a series of volunteer-operated servers, or relays, scattered across the globe. It wraps your data in multiple layers of military-grade encryption, like the layers of an onion. With each hop to a new relay, one layer of encryption is peeled away, revealing the location of the next hop. By the time your data reaches its final destination, not even the network itself knows the full path it has taken from your computer. This provides a powerful, though as we will see, not infallible, degree of anonymity. Ironically, the foundational technology for Tor was developed by the U.S. Navy in the mid-1990s as a way to protect American intelligence communications online. It was eventually released into the public domain and became an essential tool for dissidents in oppressive regimes, journalists working on sensitive stories, and privacy advocates fighting against corporate and government surveillance. But this same anonymity, this digital cloak of invisibility, inevitably created a fertile ground for a new kind of digital underworld. Black markets blossomed, the most famous being the Silk Road, where users could buy and sell illegal narcotics with the same ease as ordering a pizza. And it was in this environment, where anything seemed possible and nothing seemed traceable, that the ultimate dark service was born, the Hitman for Hire website. This technological promise of consequence-free action was then amplified by the second force, our culture. For decades, film, television, and video games have cultivated and romanticized the image of the professional assassin. Characters like John Wick, Leon the Professional, or Agent 47 from the Hitman video game series, are portrayed as cool, efficient, and operating by a strict moral or professional code. They are presented as the ultimate problem solvers, delivering clean, untraceable results for the right price. Pop culture has taken the horrific act of murder for hire and transformed it into a believable, almost mundane, commercial transaction. It has planted a potent seed in the collective consciousness: if you have enough money and the right connection, you can make any human problem permanently disappear. When these two powerful forces combine, the promise of absolute anonymity from technology and the cultural normalization of the contract killer, the myth becomes almost irresistible to a person in a state of extreme desperation, anger, or greed. The dark web seems to offer a logical, albeit terrifying, next step. It offers the illusion of an escape from the messiness and consequences of the real world. Psychologists have a term for this: the online disinhibition effect. Shielded by the perceived anonymity of a screen, people say and do things they would never dare to do in a face-to-face interaction. The screen acts as a moral buffer. It creates a psychological distance that dehumanizes the act. You're not conspiring to end a life, you're filling out a web form. You're not destroying a family, you're completing a secure transaction. Into this fertile ground for moral and logical self-deception stepped a website that seemed to have perfected the illusion. It was called Besa Mafia. And it was a work of art in the field of criminal branding. To the untrained eye, it looked utterly professional. The design was clean, with a dark, serious color palette. It claimed to be the official online presence of a powerful Albanian criminal organization, leveraging the fearsome real-world reputation of the Albanian mob for instant credibility. It had a detailed "About Us" page, outlining their supposed code of ethics and commitment to discretion. It featured a clear, tiered price list for their services. A severe beating might cost you $5,000. Arson, a bit more. A standard assassination started at $20,000. For a premium, they could make it look like a tragic accident or a robbery gone wrong. To bolster its facade of legitimacy, the site was peppered with glowing testimonials from supposedly satisfied customers. Fast, professional, and discreet, one read. They solved a problem my lawyers couldn't for a fraction of the price. Worth every penny. Another said, I was hesitant, but the admin was very helpful and the result was perfect. October 10th. It even had a 24/7 customer support chat, where a calm, professional administrator would answer any questions and patiently guide potential clients through the process of acquiring Bitcoin and placing their first order. The site was a masterpiece of social engineering and psychological manipulation. It was designed to look exactly how a desperate person, fed on a diet of Hollywood thrillers, would imagine a real hitman website to look. It was a digital Venus flytrap, baited with the promise of a simple solution, and it was about to claim its first, unsuspecting victims. Our first case file does not open in the cold, sterile boardroom of a corporation, but in the emotionally charged chaos of a broken heart. It is the story of a young woman whom we will call Jessica. At just 20 years old, Jessica was a promising pre-veterinary student at a state university in a quiet Midwestern town. By all external measures, her life was a blueprint of normalcy. She came from a loving, middle-class family, she had a close circle of friends from her sorority, and she had a clear, compassionate ambition to dedicate her life to caring for animals. Her world was stable, predictable, and safe. Until, in the span of a single conversation, it wasn't. The catalyst for her descent was a breakup. Her boyfriend of 3 years, a person she had woven into every aspect of her future plans, ended their relationship. The reason he gave was vague, a collection of cliches about needing space and wanting to find himself. The pain of the heartbreak was immense, a physical ache that settled deep in her chest. But heartbreak is a universal human experience. For Jessica, however, this common pain was about to metastasize into something far more dangerous. The poison that fueled this transformation was social media. In the weeks following the breakup, she watched through the curated, hyperreal lens of Instagram as her ex-boyfriend seemingly moved on with impossible speed. Pictures appeared of him with a new girlfriend. They were smiling on a hiking trip. They were laughing with friends at a concert. They were on vacation, his arm draped around her, the caption reading, "Never been happier." Each post, each tag, each cheerful comment from their mutual friends felt like a personal, deliberate attack. Her grief, a natural and healthy emotion, began to sour into a bitter resentment. And over time, that resentment curdled into a dangerous, all-consuming obsession. Her days became a cycle of compulsive surveillance. She created fake accounts to watch their Instagram stories without them knowing. She would spend hours, late into the night, scrolling through years of the new girlfriend's photos, dissecting her life, comparing it to her own. In Jessica's increasingly distorted worldview, this new woman wasn't just a new partner, she was a thief. A thief who had stolen her life, her happiness, her future. The rational part of her brain, the part that knew this was unhealthy, was drowned out by a constant, screaming internal monologue of jealousy and rage. She felt utterly powerless, and this feeling of profound powerlessness drove her to seek a source of ultimate, absolute power. Her journey into the abyss began, as many do, with a simple Google search. Late one night, unable to sleep, she typed, "How to get revenge on an ex who cheated." The initial results were tame, articles about self-care, advice on blocking them on social media. But as she clicked deeper, she found her way to darker forums, online communities where angry and disenfranchised people shared fantasies of revenge. It was in one of these forums that she first saw whispers of the dark web, a hidden corner of the internet where, it was said, anything was possible. Driven by a morbid curiosity, she followed the instructions she found. She downloaded the Tor browser. The experience was both frightening and exhilarating. The slow connection speeds, the strange .onion web addresses, it felt like she was stepping into a forbidden, secret world. It felt powerful. And in that world, after a few hours of searching, she found Besa Mafia. The website was everything the legends promised. It was dark, it was professional, and it promised absolute discretion. Her heart pounded in her chest as she read the list of services. For a moment, the sheer horror of it all washed over her. The sane, rational Jessica, the one who loved animals and wanted to be a vet, was screaming at her to close the laptop and walk away. But the obsessed, heartbroken Jessica was stronger. She saw not a list of heinous crimes, but a menu of solutions to her pain. With a trembling finger, she clicked on the customer support chat. Her initial messages were hesitant, testing the waters. "Is this for real?" she typed. "Can you really do what you say?" The reply was swift, calm, and reassuring. "We have been in this business for many years. We are professionals. Your safety and your anonymity are our primary concerns." Over the course of several days, a sinister relationship formed. The undercover agent playing the role of the administrator didn't push her. They listened. They groomed her. She poured out her entire story of betrayal and heartbreak. The admin was endlessly sympathetic, validating her every feeling of anger and injustice. "He destroyed your life," the admin typed. "He took your future from you. An act like that deserves a powerful response." The agent was not creating the idea, they were simply stoking the fire that was already burning inside her, giving her the moral permission she craved to embrace her darkest thoughts. Finally, she made the decision. The administrator patiently walked her through the confusing and stressful process of buying Bitcoin from an online exchange. She had to link her bank account, verify her identity, and wait for the funds to clear. It was a clumsy, difficult process, but her white-hot determination carried her through. She transferred $20,000 of her student loan and savings to the anonymous wallet address provided by the site. Then, she composed the final message. She sent the name of the new girlfriend. Her home address. The address of the coffee shop where she worked part-time. A detailed daily schedule, pieced together from months of obsessive social media stalking. She even included a recent photograph she had downloaded from the victim's profile. In the special instructions box, a feature designed to create a sense of customized service, she wrote, "Make it look like a car accident. I don't want her to suffer, I just want her gone from his life." She hit send. A profound wave of relief washed over her, a feeling of finality. This was quickly followed by a tidal wave of sheer terror. What had she done? For the next 2 weeks, she lived in a self-imposed prison of anxiety. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. She compulsively checked local news websites, her stomach churning with a mixture of dread and anticipation. Every time her phone rang with an unknown number, her heart leaped into her throat. The administrator told her to be patient, that a professional job takes time to plan for maximum effectiveness. One evening, about 16 days after she had sent the money, there was a knock on the door of her small, off-campus apartment. She expected nothing. Maybe a package delivery, or a neighbor asking to borrow some sugar. Her blood ran cold when she looked through the peephole. It wasn't a lone figure in a dark coat, coming to give her a clandestine report. It was a team of federal agents, their badges displayed prominently, their faces grim and serious. When she opened the door, her world seemed to slow down, the sound fading to a dull roar in her ears. They knew her name. They showed her a warrant with her address on it. They asked her about a website called Besa Mafia, and about a young woman in her town. Her shock was absolute. She tried to deny everything, but her pale face and trembling hands betrayed her. As they placed her in handcuffs, the cold metal biting into her wrists, and read her Miranda rights, the only thing she could think about was a single, terrifying, crystal-clear thought: the trap had not been for her victim. It had been for her, all along. Not all motives are born from the chaotic heat of passion. Some are forged in the cold, clear calculus of profit and loss. Our second case file takes us across the Atlantic, to a vibrant, historic city in northern Italy, and into the impeccably tailored world of a man we will call Marco. Marco was the embodiment of the self-made man. In his late 40s, he was the proud co-owner of a high-end luxury car dealership, a business he had painstakingly built from the ground up with his childhood friend and business partner, Lorenzo. He possessed all the trappings of success: a beautiful wife who chaired charity events, 2 intelligent children enrolled in the best private schools, and a sprawling, elegant villa in the Tuscan countryside. His life was a testament to his relentless ambition and his meticulous attention to detail. But beneath the polished chrome and handcrafted leather of his showroom, a fatal crack was forming in the foundation of his empire. The dealership, despite its glamorous facade, was in serious financial trouble. A series of risky investments in the volatile stock market, coupled with a general downturn in the luxury goods market, had left the business heavily leveraged and deeply in debt. Lorenzo, the more cautious of the 2 partners, saw the writing on the wall. He was tired of the stress, tired of the risk. He wanted out. He informed Marco that he intended to invoke a clause in their partnership agreement, sell his 50% share of the business, and retire to a quiet life on the coast. For Marco, this news was not an inconvenience, it was a death sentence. Lorenzo's capital and credit line were the only things keeping the banks from foreclosing on their massive loans. If Lorenzo pulled out, the entire house of cards would collapse. Marco would lose everything: the business he had poured his life into, the villa that was a symbol of his success, the respect of his family and his community. He would be utterly and publicly ruined. He tried to reason with Lorenzo. He pleaded, he bargained, he made promises he knew he couldn't keep. But his friend's mind was made up. Panic, an emotion Marco despised, began to set in. He saw his entire life's work, his very identity, slipping through his fingers like sand. He felt trapped, cornered like an animal. And like Jessica before him, he began looking for an unconventional way out, a permanent, final way out. Marco was not an emotional man. He approached this catastrophic problem the way he approached a difficult business negotiation, with cold, detached logic, a focus on efficiency, and a complete and utter lack of sentimentality. He knew he didn't have the stomach to confront Lorenzo himself. He needed to outsource the problem. He needed a professional. His search, conducted late at night in his home office, led him down the same digital rabbit hole that had ensnared so many others. He sought out the dark web, and there he found a site that appeared to be a European affiliate of the notorious Besa Mafia. To him, this wasn't a desperate, immoral act, it was a strategic investment. A necessary, if unpleasant, cost of doing business. The price quoted for the service, €50,000, was steep, but in his cold calculation, it was far less than the cost of losing his entire empire. His communication with the site's administrator was starkly different from Jessica's emotional outpourings. It was a business transaction, plain and simple. His first message was direct and to the point: I require the removal of a business associate. The deadline is non-negotiable. I need the situation to resemble a robbery gone wrong to avoid suspicion. Please provide your terms and payment structure. He haggled over the price, trying to negotiate a 10% discount. He demanded assurances of their professionalism, asking for details about their methods and their success rate. He discussed the transfer of funds as if he were closing a deal on a new Lamborghini. He was calm, collected, and utterly convinced of his own superior intelligence. But his arrogance, his belief that he could control every variable, bred a fatal carelessness. He made a series of critical operational security errors that would systematically unravel his perfect plan. His first mistake: he accessed the dark web from his office computer, using the dealership's public Wi-Fi network. While the Tor browser did anonymize his traffic, it couldn't hide the fact that someone at that specific, verifiable IP address was accessing the Tor network at specific times. This was the first thread for investigators to pull. His second mistake was even more amateurish, and ultimately, more damning. To purchase the €50,000 worth of Bitcoin, he used a corporate bank account linked directly to his name and his business. He attempted to launder the transaction through a series of intermediary digital wallets, a technique known as tumbling, but the origin point of the funds was clear and permanently etched onto the blockchain. He had, in effect, signed his name to the payment for a contract killing. He had created a digital breadcrumb trail that a moderately skilled investigator could follow with relative ease. The website he was using was, of course, a sophisticated honeypot, run by a joint task force of European law enforcement agencies who were actively sharing intelligence with their FBI counterparts. Once Marco transferred the funds and provided Lorenzo's full name, home address, and a recent photograph, the digital trap was sprung. But they didn't arrest him immediately. They were as meticulous as he believed himself to be. They took their time, building an airtight case. Italian police obtained a warrant to place him under electronic surveillance. They recorded his phone calls, they tracked his car's movements via GPS. They gathered a mountain of evidence that left no room for doubt. The arrest was as quiet and efficient as Marco himself would have wanted. Two plainclothes officers from the Polizia di Stato entered his dealership on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. They walked past the gleaming sports cars, their reflections gliding over the polished hoods. They entered his glass-walled office, where he was on the phone finalizing a sale. They waited patiently for him to finish. Then, they presented the warrant and quietly informed him that he was under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. There was no shouting, no struggle, not even a flicker of surprise on his face. Just a quiet, stunned silence as the chrome and leather world he had fought so hard to build, and was willing to kill to protect, crumbled into dust around him. His ruthless business decision to save his company had cost him the one asset he could never replace, his freedom. We have now seen the trap from the outside, through the desperate eyes of those who stumbled into it. We've witnessed their motivations, their justifications, and their critical mistakes. Now, we must switch our perspective. We must go behind the curtain, inside the machine, and understand how this elaborate, high-stakes deception is engineered. Who are the people who spend their days posing as ruthless, cold-blooded assassins, and how do they operate in this morally gray landscape? The individuals running these honeypot sites are not criminals. They are highly trained, and highly vetted, law enforcement officers. They are specialists from the elite cybercrime divisions of agencies like the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and their international counterparts like Europol and the UK's National Crime Agency. Their job is one of the most psychologically demanding and ethically complex in the entire field of modern policing. They are, in essence, digital undercover agents. They spend their days immersed in the darkest corners of human nature, not as passive observers, but as active, and seemingly willing, participants. The first step in creating a successful trap is building the website itself. This is a work of criminal art and psychological science. It has to be perfect. The site must walk an incredibly fine line. It needs to look and feel authentic enough to fool a motivated, if amateur, user. It needs to use the right criminal slang, project the right intimidating yet professional tone. But it must also scrupulously avoid actively encouraging someone who might not otherwise commit a crime. This is a crucial legal and ethical distinction known as entrapment. In the United States legal system, entrapment occurs when law enforcement officers induce a person to commit a crime that they otherwise would have had no intention of committing. To avoid this, a honeypot site cannot create the criminal intent in a person's mind. It can only provide an opportunity for someone who already possesses that intent to act upon it. This is why the language on these sites is often passive and businesslike. They present themselves as a service available for hire, not an advertisement actively seeking customers. The user must always be the one to initiate the conversation and express the criminal intent first. Once the site is live and begins to attract traffic, the real work begins. When a potential customer, like Jessica or Marco, makes contact through the secure chat feature, a trained undercover agent takes over the conversation. This agent must become the character of the site administrator. They must fully inhabit the role of a believable monster. They must be calm, reassuring, patient, and utterly devoid of morality. Their script, while flexible, is carefully designed. They are trained to mirror the customer's language and tone. If the customer is emotional and rambling, like Jessica, the agent offers a sympathetic, listening ear, validating their pain. If the customer is cold and businesslike, like Marco, the agent responds with a matching tone of cold efficiency. Their primary goal is to build a rapport, to gain the customer's trust, and to gently coax them into providing the specific, undeniable evidence that will be needed to secure a conviction in a court of law. This is a profoundly dangerous psychological game. The agent has to listen to horrific stories of abuse, betrayal, and greed. They must listen to detailed plans for murder without flinching, without revealing any hint of shock or disgust. They have to, in a sense, validate a person's decision to end another human life, using phrases like, "We can handle that for you," or, "That is a service we provide." All the while, they are meticulously documenting every single word, every timestamp, every IP address, every digital fingerprint the user leaves behind. They are building a case, piece by piece, out of the user's own words. The most critical moment in this entire delicate operation is what investigators refer to as the point of no return. It is not a crime to fantasize about harming someone. It is not even a crime to inquire about a criminal service. However morally repugnant that may be. To secure a conviction for the serious felony charges of conspiracy or solicitation of murder, prosecutors need to prove clear, unambiguous intent to act. The agent's job is to guide the customer to this point without ever pushing them over the line. This point of no return is usually composed of two key, concrete elements. The first is the payment. The transfer of a significant amount of cryptocurrency is a powerful piece of evidence. It transforms a dark fantasy into a tangible, financial transaction. It is a concrete action, a firm step from a world of "what if" into the world of "I will." The second, and even more crucial, element is the provision of specific, actionable details about the intended victim. A full name, a home address, a place of employment, a photograph. Once a customer has sent both the money and this identifying information, they have crossed a clear legal and moral line. There is no going back. There is no way to claim it was just a morbid fantasy. They have provided the funds and the target. They have, in the eyes of the law, entered into a conspiracy. But how do they catch them? Isn't the entire point of the dark web to be anonymous? The anonymity provided by Tor and Bitcoin is strong, but it is not absolute. Its integrity depends entirely on the user not making a single, solitary mistake. As we saw in the case of Marco, and in countless others like it, this is rarely the case. The targets are amateurs. The investigators are professionals. Investigators have a growing arsenal of sophisticated techniques at their disposal. They can perform advanced analysis on the blockchain, the public ledger of all Bitcoin transactions. While the wallets are pseudonymous, the path that money takes can sometimes be traced back to a cryptocurrency exchange where the user had to register with their real identity to comply with anti-money laundering regulations. They use advanced digital forensics to analyze server logs, looking for patterns and clues. They can often correlate the timing of a user's activity on the dark web with their activity on the regular internet, looking for a match. But often, the biggest break in the case comes from the users themselves. They get sloppy. They use the same username on the dark web as they do on a public gaming forum or a social media site. They accidentally leave EXIF metadata embedded in a photograph they upload, data which can contain the GPS coordinates of where the photo was taken or the model of the camera used. They talk too much in the chat, revealing personal details about their lives that can be used to identify them. The undercover agents are experts at spotting these tiny cracks in a person's operational security. Each case is a complex, multi-layered puzzle, and the agents are patient, methodical puzzle solvers. For them, every chat log, every transaction, every careless word, is another piece falling into place, slowly but surely revealing the true face of the person hiding on the other side of the screen. Our final case is, in many ways, the most chilling. It is the most intimate, and the most profoundly tragic. Because in this case, the threat wasn't an external one, it wasn't a business rival or a new lover. The order for the assassination came from inside the house. The target was a husband, and the person who wanted him dead was his wife. This is the story of Tina, a 42-year-old stay-at-home mother from a wealthy, picture-perfect suburb. To her neighbors, to the other parents at her children's school, Tina's life was an object of envy. She had a handsome, successful husband who worked in finance, 2 bright, athletic children, a beautiful, sprawling home at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, and an active social life filled with charity events and book club meetings. Her Facebook profile was a masterpiece of curated domestic bliss, galleries of smiling family vacations to tropical destinations, posts celebrating her son's soccer trophies and her daughter's academic awards, and gushing anniversary tributes to her amazing husband and best friend. It was a perfect life, meticulously constructed, and built upon a foundation of devastating secrets and corrosive lies. For several years, Tina had harbored a growing suspicion that her husband was having an affair. It started as a subtle, gnawing gut feeling, a series of small inconsistencies in his stories that didn't quite add up. Late nights at the office became more frequent. Unexplained business trips on weekends. A sudden, uncharacteristic secretiveness with his phone, which now had a new password and was never left unattended. Her suspicions grew from a quiet worry into a quiet, all-consuming obsession. She did not confront him. A direct confrontation would shatter the perfect facade she had worked so hard to maintain. Instead, she became a spy in her own home. She began her own secret, clandestine investigation. When he was in the shower, she would check his phone records. She learned how to read his credit card statements online, looking for hotel charges or expensive gifts she never received. She guessed the password to his personal email account. What she found there confirmed her worst fears, and then some. He was not just having a casual affair. He was living a complete double life, with another woman in a nearby city. There were love letters, plans for a future together, discussions of how and when he would finally leave Tina. The discovery shattered her world. It wasn't just the profound pain of the betrayal that hurt her, it was the searing, public humiliation she imagined. The thought of her perfect life becoming the subject of whispered gossip among the other mothers at the country club was unbearable. More than that, she was gripped by a cold, pragmatic terror of the financial consequences of a divorce. She had not worked since her children were born. She was completely financially dependent on her husband. She feared she would lose the house, her social status, and, in a bitter custody battle, maybe even her children. The life she had so carefully constructed was about to be utterly demolished. Like the others before her, her profound desperation drove her to the darkest corners of the internet. She found a hitman for hire site, and, after days of agonizing hesitation, she made contact. But her interaction with the undercover agent playing the role of the hitman was starkly different from the others. It wasn't fueled by the white-hot rage of Jessica or the cold, detached logic of Marco. It was a torrent of raw, unfiltered pain and despair. She didn't just place an order, she confessed. In long, rambling, often incoherent messages typed late at night, she poured out her heart to this anonymous, monstrous stranger. She told him everything. About the affair, about her fears of poverty and social ruin, about her deep, fierce love for her children. She detailed her husband's daily routines, not as a tactical plan for an ambush, a service she was paying for, but as a bittersweet narrative of their shared life. He jogs in the park by the lake at 6 a.m. every morning, he says it's the only time he gets to himself. He takes the kids to soccer practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He never misses a game. The undercover agent on the other side of the screen was now in a deeply uncomfortable and ethically complex situation. This wasn't a hardened sociopath. This was a profoundly broken, isolated, and desperate human being. The agent, following their strict protocol, had to continue the charade. But they also began to subtly test her resolve, to give her opportunities to back away, to give her an out. They had to walk a very fine line. "Are you absolutely certain this is what you want?" the agent typed. "This is a permanent solution. There is no undoing it. Once the process is in motion, it cannot be stopped." They were trying to gather evidence of her unwavering intent, while simultaneously giving her conscience a chance to intervene. Tina's replies were tragically resolute. "I have no other choice," she wrote back. "He's going to take everything from me and leave me with nothing. He's going to destroy our children's lives. It's either him, or me, and my kids." In her mind, she had twisted this horrific act into one of maternal self-preservation, a necessary, grisly evil required to protect her children and their way of life. The point of no return came. To gather the funds, Tina sold off a collection of antique jewelry her grandmother had left her, valuable pieces she had kept hidden from her husband for years. She used the cash to purchase Bitcoin through a series of anonymous, high-fee crypto ATMs in different towns, a clumsy attempt to cover her tracks. It took her weeks of clandestine trips. Finally, she had the required amount. She made the transfer. Then she sent the final, chilling piece of information required to seal the deal, a recent photograph of her husband. He was asleep in their bed, the picture taken with her own phone just moments before, the faint glow of the screen illuminating his peaceful, unsuspecting face. The arrest was devastating in its quiet precision. The tactical team, briefed on the presence of children in the home, moved in early one morning, just after her husband had left for his daily jog in the park. They wanted to avoid a violent confrontation and, above all, to protect the children from witnessing the trauma. They found Tina in the kitchen, dressed in her workout clothes, making breakfast for her kids before school, as if it were just another ordinary Tuesday. When they entered, badges held high, she didn't seem surprised, or even angry. Only deeply, profoundly tired. Resigned. The mask of the perfect suburban mother finally fell away, revealing a woman who had been hollowed out by her own secrets and her own terrible choices. The greatest tragedy of all, however, was for her children, who, in the space of a single morning, effectively lost both of their parents, one to a dark, murderous plot born of desperation, and the other to the inevitable and devastating consequences of its discovery. The stories of Jessica, Marco, and Tina are different in their motives, their methods, and their emotional states. They represent a spectrum of human failing, from passionate rage to cold greed to abject despair. Yet they are all united by a common, fatal thread, a core belief that they could get away with it. They put their faith in the promise of digital anonymity, a promise that turned out to be a cruel illusion. This raises the critical question, why? In an age of sophisticated encryption and decentralized currency, why do they almost always get caught? The answer is that failure, in this context, is not a matter of a single, catastrophic mistake. It is a predictable pattern, a cascade of errors that fall into three distinct categories: technical ignorance, psychological blind spots, and simple, unavoidable human error. Let's first dissect the most straightforward category: technical errors. This is the low-hanging fruit for investigators. Most of the individuals who seek out these sites are not sophisticated cybercriminals. They are ordinary people, and their understanding of operational security is often based on little more than what they've seen in movies. As we saw in the case of Marco, using a home or work Wi-Fi network to access Tor is a classic rookie mistake. While Tor is excellent at hiding what you are doing online, it is not designed to hide the fact that you are using Tor. For investigators who are monitoring the traffic flowing to their honeypot website, seeing a connection, even an anonymized one, that originates from a specific corporate or residential IP address is a massive lead. It narrows down the suspect pool from millions of people to a handful of employees or a single family. The most common and most damning technical error, however, almost always relates to cryptocurrency. There is a persistent and dangerous myth that Bitcoin is anonymous. It is not. It is pseudonymous. Every single transaction, from the moment a Bitcoin is mined to the present day, is permanently and publicly recorded on a distributed ledger called the blockchain. The wallets are identified only by a long string of characters, a pseudonym. But if that pseudonym can be linked to a real person at any point in the transaction chain, the entire facade of anonymity can collapse. Marco's mistake was buying his Bitcoin from a regulated cryptocurrency exchange that was required by law to collect his real name, address, and bank account information. Jessica made a similar error, linking her personal debit card to the exchange she used. They both created a permanent, unchangeable, and public record connecting their real-world identity to the specific funds that were then used to solicit a murder. It's the digital equivalent of paying a hitman with a signed personal check. The second category of failure is more subtle, rooted in psychological errors. This is where the undercover agents truly excel. Many of the customers, like Tina, are in a state of extreme emotional distress. They are lonely, isolated, and feel a desperate need to be understood. Paradoxically, they often form a strange sort of intimacy with the anonymous hitman they are conversing with. They overshare. In their long, rambling chats with the undercover agent, they reveal small, seemingly insignificant details about their lives, their location, their work, their daily routines, or their family. To a trained investigator, these details are not idle chatter, they are invaluable intelligence. They are puzzle pieces. The user might mention a specific local landmark. They might complain about the weather in their particular city. They might mention a pet's name, a child's school, or a recent vacation. Alone, these details mean nothing. But when collected and cross-referenced with public records and social media profiles, they can be used to slowly but surely build a detailed profile of the suspect, narrowing down the possibilities until only one person fits. There is also the powerful psychological phenomenon known as confirmation bias. These individuals desperately want to believe the hitman site is real. It offers them a magical solution to the most overwhelming problem in their lives. Because they are so motivated to believe, they actively ignore the dozens of red flags that would be obvious to a more skeptical observer. They overlook the grammatical errors on the website, the slightly too perfect testimonials, the oddly accommodating and customer service-oriented nature of the supposed hardened criminal they are talking to. Their desperation creates a powerful blind spot, and it's in that blind spot that the trap is most effective. The third and final category is perhaps the most human of all, overconfidence and arrogance. Many of these individuals, particularly those motivated by greed or ego like Marco, genuinely believe they are smarter than everyone else. They believe they have found a clever loophole in the system of law and consequence. They vastly underestimate the resources, the patience, and the technical skill of modern law enforcement agencies. They see police officers as bumbling characters from a television show, easily outsmarted by a cunning protagonist. They fail to grasp that there is a global network of dedicated cybercrime experts whose entire professional lives are devoted to hunting people exactly like them. Ultimately, the act of trying to hire a hitman online is an act of profound and hubristic arrogance. It requires a person to believe two things: first, that they have the right to decide who lives and who dies, and second, that they are clever enough to orchestrate this ultimate transgression without getting caught. It is this arrogance, this fatal combination of technical ignorance, psychological neediness, and misplaced self-confidence, that ensures the trap almost always works. The final charge brought against them is rarely murder, as the crime is almost always intercepted. It is solicitation to commit murder, or conspiracy to commit murder, serious felonies that in the United States often carry a sentence of 10, 20, or even 30 years in federal prison. A very long time to sit in a cell and reflect on a series of very simple, very human, mistakes. It would be a comforting and simple narrative to believe that every hitman for hire website on the dark web is a sophisticated law enforcement honeypot, a clever trap designed to catch budding murderers. But the reality is far messier, and in some ways, far more pathetic. The truth is, the vast majority of these sites are not run by the FBI or Europol. They are run by ordinary, anonymous, and opportunistic scammers. Their goal isn't to bring anyone to justice, it's simply to make a quick and easy profit. And their methods are, in a way, even more insidious than the police stings. Imagine, for a moment, that you are a user like Jessica or Marco. You've navigated the dark web, you've found a site that looks legitimate, you've overcome your fear and your conscience, and you've gone through the stressful process of acquiring and sending a large sum of Bitcoin. You send your $20,000 to the anonymous wallet. You send the details of your target. And then you wait. And you wait. And nothing happens. Your intended victim continues to post happy photos on Instagram. Your business partner continues to come into the office every day. Your husband continues to sleep beside you every night. Your increasingly frantic messages to the site administrator go unanswered. You try to log back onto the website, only to find a 404 not found error. The site has vanished. The administrator has vanished. And your money has vanished. You have been scammed. You are now in a uniquely terrible position. You have just been robbed of a life-altering amount of money by a criminal, and you have absolutely no recourse. What are you going to do? You can't report the theft to the police. The conversation is impossible to imagine. Officer, I tried to hire a contract killer, but he turned out to be a fraud. He stole my murder money and didn't do the job. You have become the victim of a perfect crime, one that you can never report, because doing so would mean confessing to your own, far more serious, criminal conspiracy. The scammer knows this. They are exploiting the criminal intent of their customers, secure in the knowledge that they are the perfect, silent victims. But sometimes, the scam is far more creative and far more terrifying than simply taking the money and running. A more sophisticated dark web scammer will take your payment and your information, and then, after a period of agonizing silence, they will turn the tables on you. A week after you've sent the details, you receive an encrypted email. It's from the hitman you thought you hired. But the message is not the one you were expecting. It reads, I have the information you sent me regarding your plot against, victim's name. I also have all of your information. Your name, which I found from the cryptocurrency exchange you used, your email address, and the complete, unedited logs of our conversation. You now have two options. You can pay me another $10,000 in Bitcoin, discretion fee, to ensure this information remains private. Or, if you decline, I will send our entire chat log to two people, the police department in your city, and your intended victim. This is the ultimate trap. It is a checkmate from which there is no escape. You are now being actively blackmailed by the very person you hired to commit a crime. The power dynamic has been completely and brutally inverted. You are trapped between two impossible choices: pay a blackmailer, with absolutely no guarantee that they won't just come back and ask for more money later, or face the certainty of exposure, arrest, and a long prison sentence, not to mention the terrifying prospect of your intended victim finding out what you had planned. This darker side of the coin reveals the true, chaotic nature of the criminal dark web. It is not some honorable society of professional outlaws, as portrayed in fiction. It is a lawless, predatory ecosystem where the sharks prey on the minnows, and the scammers prey on the desperate and the foolish. There are no guarantees, there is no customer service, and there is certainly no honor among thieves. Whether the site is a police honeypot or a simple scam, the outcome for the customer is almost always the same. They lose. They lose their money, they lose their peace of mind, and more often than not, they lose their freedom. The illusion of control and power offered by these dark web marketplaces is just that, a fleeting and expensive illusion. The moment you enter their world, you are no longer in control of your own fate. You have simply chosen your predator. The dark web, in its most popular conception, promises a world without consequences. A digital frontier where anonymity is a cloak of invisibility, allowing the darkest parts of human nature to flourish without fear of reprisal. It offers the seductive, and deeply dangerous, illusion of a world where you can reshape reality with a few keystrokes and a secure cryptocurrency transfer. It offers the illusion of ultimate power. But reality, with its stubborn and unyielding laws of cause and effect, always has a way of bleeding through the screen. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. For every choice, a consequence. Behind every anonymous username, behind every layer of encryption, behind every pseudonymous Bitcoin transaction, there is a real person. A person made of flesh and blood, with a history, a family, and a conscience. A person who made a choice, driven by one of the oldest and most powerful forces in the human experience: rage, greed, jealousy, or despair. The stories of Jessica, the heartbroken student, Marco, the ruthless businessman, and Tina, the desperate housewife, are not just crime reports to be consumed and forgotten. They are modern fables. They are stark, cautionary tales about the perilous intersection of timeless human fallibility and the boundless, immoral landscape of the digital age. They each sought a simple, clean, digital solution to a complex, messy, human problem. In their obsessive search for a delete button for another person's life, they ended up inadvertently pressing delete on their own futures. They found themselves caught in a web, not of dark code and hidden servers, but of their own making, woven from their own secrets and their own choices. So, if you ever hear the urban legend of the digital assassin, the ghost in the machine waiting for your order in the shadowed corners of the internet, remember the truth. Remember that the customer service on these websites is, in fact, ruthlessly and unerringly efficient. And remember that the most likely person on the other end of that anonymous chat is not a killer waiting for a contract. It is an agent of the justice system, patiently waiting for a confession. Because in the end, the most reliable and inescapable trap ever designed for a human being is not made of steel or code. It is made of their own desperate desire to believe in an easy lie. Their own fervent hope that, just this once, in the darkness of the web, they can get away with it. And as these stories show, they never do.